Hey everyone, FFJmon here and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing another Pokemon movie, and the movie that I'm going to be reviewing is none other than Pokemon Mewtwo Returns. So this is basically a TV movie that is a sequel to Pokemon the first movie, and it basically continues the story of Mewtwo and his clones and kind of what happens to them after the events of Pokemon Mewtwo Strikes Back, aka Pokemon the first movie. So I've seen this movie before, but I decided to rewatch it to kind of get a fresh set of eyes on it so I could do a review. And yeah, I watched it yesterday and I'm going to review it today. So I'm really excited to do that and let you guys kind of know my thoughts on the movie and kind of dive into some of the details. And also because it is a kind of a lesser known Pokemon movie, it's not really kind of part of the core movies that fans are familiar with, just because it is kind of more of a TV movie type deal, like direct to DVD type movie, because I don't think it had a theatrical release. So it is kind of more of an unknown movie, and a lot of people probably don't even know that there was a sequel, like a direct sequel to Pokemon the first movie. So I'm excited to review it and to really dive into that with you guys. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And without further ado, let's get started. Alright guys, so what I like to do with my movie reviews, if you guys have seen my previous videos, is basically kind of break them up into three different parts. I have kind of part one where I just kind of go over the plot points of the movie, just kind of give a summary, and obviously that summary is going to contain spoilers because I'm basically going to talk about, you know, the plots and goings on of the movie itself. So that will be part one. Part two, then I'll kind of give my thoughts and kind of do some pros and cons lists here. So I'll kind of do some of the pros of the movie that I really liked, some of the cons of the movie that I didn't like, and then kind of hash into those a little bit. And then once that's done, we'll do a part three where I basically just kind of give my overall concluding thoughts on how I like the movie, and then kind of give it a final review score out of 5 stars, how I enjoyed the movie. So that's kind of the format I do for my movie review videos, and yeah, hope you guys kind of enjoy that. And without further ado, we can go ahead and start with part one, which is the plot of Pokemon Mewtwo Returns. So going into the plot, basically in the beginning, Mewtwo essentially gives a recap of everything that happened in the first movie, which is nice if you hadn't seen the first movie in a while, or maybe hadn't even seen it at all. It's nice that Mewtwo basically just gives like a recap of exactly what happened in the first movie, kind of the events of it. I'm not going to rehash the first movie, I've already made a video about that, so go ahead and check it out if you haven't. But basically Mewtwo recaps it for you and gives kind of a good summary on what happened in the events of the first movie. And it was interesting because I'm kind of looking at my notes here. He said that Ash's sacrifice proved to him that he cared about all Pokemon, so it didn't matter if the Pokemon were born or created. So that was something that really stuck out to Mewtwo, is that, you know, when Ash kind of stood in front of Mew and Mewtwo and they were trying to basically blast each other with some energy power, Ash kind of stepped in the way and stopped them from destroying each other. And that showed Mewtwo that, hey, you know, he doesn't just care about the non-clone Pokemon, but he cares about the clone Pokemon as well, and he didn't want them to fight, and he cared about all Pokemon, not just ones that were clones. So that was really cool. It's a cool insight Mewtwo had, and that act of sacrificial, self-giving, and yeah, not wanting any harm to be done to any Pokemon, and just how much he cared about Pokemon in general, kind of opened Mewtwo's eyes to the world, and that, you know, humans aren't all bad, even if the ones that he was exposed to in the past that created him were bad and kind of preconditioned him to not trust humanity. Ash and his friends kind of made him trust humanity again, at least to some extent. So going back to the first movie, I know I wasn't going to rehash into it, but basically to start the events of this movie, Mewtwo essentially, after all the events of the first movie, Mewtwo basically wipes the memory of everybody that was kind of involved with the events of the first movie. So Ash, Misty, Brock, you know, those other trainers that were invited to that island, Nurse Joy, like none of them remember what happened in the first movie because Mewtwo wiped their memory. But one person that did not get their memory wiped was none other than Giovanni, kind of the mastermind behind Mewtwo being created in the first place. So he remembered Mewtwo and kind of what he did to him and the betrayal that Mewtwo kind of did to him. So he basically remembers Mewtwo and basically seeks to find him and kind of reclaim him as his own and use him for his nefarious purposes. So basically this movie starts out with Giovanni looking for Mewtwo, and he ends up finding him on this remote canyon, or it's basically, there's like an island on this canyon. It's called Purity Canyon. It was the Johto region's greatest natural wonder, and it's basically where all the clone Pokemon decided to basically retreat to after the events of the first movie. It's kind of like their safe haven, and a place where the clone Pokemon can kind of feel like they have a community of their own and be away from humanity and away from, I guess, other Pokemon that would judge them for being clones. So they live at Purity Canyon. Giovanni kind of has scouts and is able to figure out that, hey, Mewtwo is here, and basically he kind of sets in motion the steps to find Mewtwo and kind of reclaim him. So, of course, Ash and his friends are on their journey through the Johto region. They come across Purity Canyon. The movie also talks about how there's extreme weather conditions that happen at Purity Canyon, so a lot of weird stuff goes on, a lot of crazy winds and typhoons and stuff that goes on at Purity Canyon. And yeah, that's kind of the backdrop, and I think a part of that is because Mewtwo kind of can manipulate the weather with his psychic powers, as was shown in the first movie. But basically they do that to kind of keep people away from the canyon and not have them kind of disturb their habitat that they've made for themselves. So Mewtwo's kind of monitoring. He has like a TV monitor in his lair, which I thought was funny. Like Mewtwo just has access to technology apparently, and he basically watches over the canyon, and if anyone kind of gets too close or he's a little suspicious of them, he'll kind of drive them away. But then also he'll help people too. So there's an example early in the movie when there was a tour bus kind of going through or around the canyon, and the high winds in that area were kind of picking up, and we're basically going to blow the bus like off the canyon. Mewtwo basically uses his psychic powers to save them, and that kind of shows that, you know, he still kind of has faith in humanity and still cares about them, even if on the surface he kind of seems alone and isolated and doesn't really want anything to do with them, and is just trying to like live on his own with his clone friends. So that's kind of the backdrop of what Mewtwo's doing. And of course Team Rocket's there as well. They're making jokes. They're trying to find Pikachu and claim him for their own so they can give it to Giovanni. They make some puns and funny jokes. A couple of them that stood out was, they got blown by the wind as well, and they ended up like hanging onto this limb, all three of them, and Meowth says that if it wasn't for this umbrella, we'd be out on a limb, because they literally were on a limb and they were hanging onto an umbrella. So that was funny. Yeah, but basically, Ash and their friends, they get to the canyon. They were trying to get on that bus, but they missed it. This woman, I forget her name, but basically like takes them into their cabin. They want to kind of explore the water at Purity Canyon because it's known to have like special healing properties. And then this guy kind of shows up that is researching the water and wants to, I think he's a doctor, and he wants to basically find the ways that they can use the water for like medicinal purposes. And he's kind of traveling with this woman that's from the Pokemon Institute. Her name was Domino. I don't remember if that was her original name or not, but yeah, there was a woman from the Pokemon Institute with this doctor guy. They were there also to study Purity Canyon. So all of them kind of set out to study the canyon, and they were trying to get there. They initially were trying to go by the river and kind of canoe their way to the canyon, but there's a bunch of bug Pokemon there. Obviously Misty doesn't like them, and they had to basically backtrack and basically climb Mount Cana or Quena. Is it Quena? yeah, Kenya. I don't remember. It was a mountain basically on the canyon that they have to climb to get to Purity Canyon and where the water spring is. So yeah, they're kind of all the people kind of in their troop are making their way to the canyon. Oh, Mewtwo's kind of grappling with, them being clones, wondering what their purpose is. Kind of what he was talking about in the first movie. Do they have to kind of live in this isolation period forever? Could they ever like live normally in society, like as Pokemon, without being mistreated or without being outcast or kind of being seen as kind of aberrations to nature? So he's kind of contemplating that. Some of the other clone Pokemon are trying to kind of have him grapple with it as well. So he's kind of going back and forth about what they should be doing. Oh yeah, Team Rocket, before they left the cabin, Team Rocket tried to take Pikachu. They weren't successful. Ash and the team climbed the mountain. They realized that that Domino, or that girl that was traveling with the doctor, ends up being a member of Team Rocket, and she's working for this combat unit, and they're basically tasked to capture Mewtwo because Giovanni found out that he was there. Yeah, then basically then eventually the Giovanni comes and their like combat helicopter comes. They try to take, I think they try to disrupt the team or take Pikachu, or I forget exactly what happens, but I think Team Rocket, like Jesse James, Meowth, they try to take Pikachu, they fail. Then they basically, Domino kind of reveals herself. Then Pikachu meets like his clone or her clone, and then Pikachu and Pikachu fight each other, and then the clones feel like misfits. Helicopter tries to capture, the helicopter that Giovanni had tried to capture all the different clone Pokemon, and then Mewtwo basically stops Giovanni from capturing all of them because they were going to basically do experiments on them, see how they were cloned, and then basically replicate that cloning process, because I think all of that process kind of got lost in the first movie when Mewtwo blew up that lab. And Mewtwo is the one that cloned all those other Pokemon, not the original scientist that cloned Mewtwo. So besides Mewtwo is basically the only successful clone that was done by humans, and all the rest of the Pokemon clones were done by Mewtwo himself. So Giovanni, I think, wants to know how to replicate the cloning so that he can clone his own Pokemon, essentially. So Mewtwo saves his friends from Giovanni, and then Giovanni threatens basically the safety of those clones unless Mewtwo kind of gives himself up. Mewtwo tries to save them, and then let's see, Mewtwo sacrifices himself to kind of protect the clones. Other Pokemon come to help. They end up kind of trying to capture Mewtwo. He ends up kind of breaking from their grasp. Ash and the team help basically Mewtwo stop Giovanni. And then Mewtwo gets severely injured because of these machines that Giovanni uses to try to capture Mewtwo. Basically, they help Ash and the team help Mewtwo kind of escape from the machines, but then Mewtwo's really weak. But then since the water has healing properties, Ash and the team decide to basically take Mewtwo to the water, have him go in there and revive himself, and then Mewtwo, once he's revived, basically, he has the power to defend the canyon. And ultimately, Mewtwo decides to move the whole canyon underground, basically below the mountain, or move the whole spring, and that's kind of how he protects the clones. And then he also memory wipes Team Rocket and all the bad guys, but then doesn't memory wipe Ash and the team and everyone else, so they all remember what happened, but Team Rocket and all the bad guys don't. So it was kind of like an inverse of what happened in the first movie, is that the good guys remember, bad guys don't. And then basically some of the clones decided they wanted to stay, other clones decided they wanted to reintegrate with society, so they kind of split up a little bit. And then Mewtwo basically decides that he wants to find his purpose out in the world and not just kind of be a recluse, so he ends up kind of leaving and then basically watching over this mysterious city that Ash and the team eventually go to, but it's not named what city that is, and he's just kind of there watching over the city. So that's kind of where Mewtwo is left off at after he stops Giovanni, kind of realizes his purpose. And he also realizes that, the world should be shared by, all Pokemon. And it doesn't matter how you were born or where you came from. It matters that you're a Pokemon and you're a living creature, and all living creatures should be respected. And he kind of realized that when he was in the water, when he was being healed, and it reminded him of the flashbacks or scenes that he was seeing when he was in his cloning chamber back in the first movie, and he would have little scenes of Mew just being in the water and kind of just being part of nature, and realizing that we all kind of share this world together, and we all kind of have this purpose in life to live and to experience the world, and we shouldn't be defined by our differences, but we should be defined by our similarities. So yeah, I kind of realized that water would have the same effect on all Pokemon. It healed him, but if any Pokemon was injured and would get into that water, they would all be healed the same way. So we kind of just and there was another scene with the moon where I think they were looking at the moon, and the clone Meowth was talking to Mewtwo and basically saying yeah, regardless of who you are, you're all able to look and kind of behold the moon and realize that all Pokemon see the moon the same way, or can take it in and embrace it, and all of us kind of share that experience together, and we all kind of share our living and our experiences regardless of if we're a clone or if we're not. So I don't know if you guys think that's deep, or if you don't. I thought it was interesting. It's cool to kind of dig a little bit deeper and see kind of some of the motivations and what's going on in the movie. I guess I can kind of finish up. I think that was pretty much all the plot. I don't really think there's anything too crazy. It's basically, to give a quick 10-15 second plot, basically Mewtwo and the clones go to a secluded place. Giovanni finds out that they're there. They try to capture Mewtwo and the clones. Ash and team conveniently, are at that spot as well. They protect Mewtwo and the clones. Mewtwo, the clones, Ash and the team end up defeating Giovanni, and then Mewtwo decides to wipe out the memory of all the bad guys, so they don't remember anything. And then they end up hiding their retreat inside the canyon, and then Ash and the team, continue on their adventure. So that was pretty tight plot, not really a lot happening. You could definitely tell the production value of the movie was a little bit lower. They reused a lot of the same score and soundtrack from the first movie, and even some of the dialogue I felt was lines that was from the first movie but maybe slightly modified, but I feel even that was kind of reused somewhat. So it wasn't very it was just a direct-to-TV movie. It wasn't anything special. Definitely didn't have that same cinematic feel as the first movie or the second movie that I reviewed. And yeah, you can kind of tell it just had a lower budget and was just trying to deal with kind of what Team Rocket was going to do in the fallout of Mewtwo kind of escaping and them trying to reclaim him. So it was kind of cool to get resolution about that, but not a lot of battling and not a lot of action really too much. It was just kind of seeing Mewtwo grappling with his new place in society now. So that's the plot. We'll go into the pros and cons. I think I've talked about some of them already. Some of the pros are, I like how it dives more into the events of what happened in the first movie and gives resolution to Mewtwo and the clones and kind of what happened to them after it. Because, yeah, a lot of it's kind of like a what if of whatever happened to Mewtwo and those clones when they went off into the world? Well, this kind of provides an answer, and it provides the answer to, didn't Team Rocket ever try to find Mewtwo again once he destroyed their lab and kind of ran away? And this kind of helps resolve it, and it kind of ties a bow into, Mewtwo defeating them and wiping their memories, so they never really have memory of trying to get him again once this movie kind of passes and there's other movies after that. So that was cool. Gave resolution. It was cool that I was in the Johto region, kind of a new environment, and yeah, Ash and their friends, doing what they do, save the day. So it was a decent movie. It's cool to see, the nostalgia from the first movie kind of replay itself again. But yeah, I thought it was decent. So going now into some of the negatives, I think I kind of went over some of those, but just to recap, you can just tell the budget was lower. They reused a lot of stuff that was in the first movie. The plot wasn't super complex, and I feel like they really kind of didn't do too much with what was happening. And I don't know, I feel like maybe one of my main complaints is, I guess if they were to do a sequel to the first one, since the first one was so epic, I wish the second one kind of had more time and was fleshed out a little bit more, just because the first one I thought had a good story, great villain, and it was just kind of a bummer that they decided to have the sequel be just a direct-to-DVD type of movie instead of putting more production into the second one. So I think that's kind of my main gripe with the second movie. Not saying it's a bad movie per se, but yeah, you can just kind of tell it's a low budget and it doesn't really have the same impact as the first movie. So now I think we're gonna get into the rating. So I think overall, out of 5 stars, if I was to rate Pokemon Mewtwo Returns, I think I'm gonna give it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I think that's a fair rating just because it still has some merit. It's the sequel to the first movie, kind of resolves some unresolved plot points. But I think this movie just had some limitations, and it wasn't as good as in terms of overall quality. So overall, 2.5 out of 5 stars, but still an enjoyable watch. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the movie review of Pokemon Mewtwo Returns. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Please look out for further videos talking about movie reviews on future Pokemon movies. And yeah, please check back in for more content. So thank you all. Hope you have a great night. I'll see you on the next video.